In recent years, extreme diets have been gaining in popularity. And by extreme diets, I'm talking about those which exclude whole food groups. Now, the long-term data on this is pretty inconclusive, and we want to understand the effect that this could potentially have on the microbiome long-term if we follow these diets. So the first thing we need to understand is the basics of the microbiome and how it actually functions. One of the main fuel sources of the microbiome is dietary fiber. So this is things like oats, fruit, beans, berries, all these sorts of things. When they're broken down in the digestive system, they break down into specific compounds that help to feed the gut. Now the big three are acetate, propionate, and butyrate. Butyrate is the main compound fueling and healing gut cells, particularly the gut barrier integrity. And the other two, propionate and acetate, are very much used in regulating the immune system and inflammatory markers. Now, the caveat for IBD is that while a lot of these foods are really good for the microbiome, a lot of them are also high in what we call FODMAPs. Now, FODMAPs can be particularly troublesome for anyone with a sensitive gut or any long-standing gut issue. Foods that are high in FODMAPs are the stronger tasting foods, so garlic, onion, wheat, and even some fruits. Now, after dietary fiber, we have another fuel source, which is resistant starch. Now, resistant starch is a mega feeder for the colon. The reason it's called resistant starch is because it's able to resist digestion, essentially. So it passes through the small intestine, makes its way down to the large intestine, and with resistant starch in particular, it's actually able to make its way right to the end of the colon, which feeds all the bacteria waiting there. Now, some example of this could include rice that's especially cooked, left to cool down and then reheated the next day. The same goes for potatoes. So for potatoes, if you boil them and then you wait for them to cool down, they form resistant starch. And the same can be said for green bananas as well. So when you eat green bananas, you have that initial layer that kind of sticks in your mouth. That is literally resistant starch in your mouth. And as the bananas ripen, that breaks down into sugar rather than resistant starch. So you lose the benefits of the gut feeding bacteria the more ripe bananas get. The next fuel source is polyphenols. Polyphenols are natural compounds occurring in fruit and veg. In a large majority of the fruit and veg, it's actually the thing that gives the pigmentation. So where you get the red of tomatoes or the purple of the grape, that is generally the polyphenols within that food giving it that strong pigmentation. And again, we know that resistant starch essentially acts as a fertilizer for good bacteria. So it helps to reduce inflammation, it supports gut cells, and it supports short-chain fatty acid production, like butyrate. And then lastly, you've got your prebiotic fibers, things like inulin, which can be found in garlic, onions, asparagus, and this acts in a very similar way to resistant starch. It helps beneficial bacteria grow, like bifidobacteria, and it also helps the production of short-chain fatty acids like butyrate as well. And the reason why these microbes are so important is that 70 to 80% of the immune system is located in the gut. The microbes within the gut are what detect any sort of imbalances or any sort of harmful substances or things that shouldn't be in the body. And that's what protects us. If this colony of microbes is out of sync or it's populated with bad microbes, they can't do their job effectively and your immune system is then compromised. So we know that from the context of the microbiome and from understanding how it feeds, that when we go on restricted diets, what we're actually doing is we're reducing the food that we're providing to our microbes. As those microbes can't get the fuel that they need to, they start to become imbalanced. And unfortunately, what we do know is that microbes that feed on plants and stuff like that actually help to rebuild the barrier and rebuild the gut integrity. They can't get their fuel source from fiber, they actually end up eating away at the mucus layer within your intestine. So that's definitely something we want to try and avoid while we're living with IBD, because we want to try and rebuild that gut barrier, not tear it down. So just based on how the microbiome feeds, we can say quite comfortably that we don't think any long-term data will support the use of these kind of narrow diets. The general advice is to keep as balanced as possible and as much variety from plants as we can. Generally, the aim is around 30 different plants per week. And, you know, it sounds like a lot, but spices, herbs are all included within that variety. So it can be quite easy to get, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 portions into one meal. Now, in the next video, I'm going to look at why these narrow diets or restricted diets can be quite beneficial in IBD, particularly for short-term use. See you on the next one.